This question is for the Honorable Charles Barron. That's the Honorable because he's a member of the City Council. It says, if you become governor, will you bring back Section 8 for those who cannot afford high rent?
Well, that's a simple one, absolutely. But I'm hoping that if the income can be raised, we won't need Section 8. But definitely, I would bring back Section 8. It is critical because they've taken a lot of the Section 8 vouchers away. And I would do more project-based Section 8. Because when it's project-based, then the Section 8 is stuck with the development. When it's individually based, then they can leave. And if you leave with your Section 8 as an individual, then that house can go up very, very high. So we got to continue the Mitchell Lama program, affordable housing. We got to fight to make sure that we have home rule over housing. The state has home rule. The state rules a lot of our housing laws, took a lot of our power away. So we got to repeal those laws that definitely give the Erstad law and other laws that give the state power over the city's housing home rule laws. So I would fight for that, and I would absolutely put more money into Section 8. And I can do that because we're going to have a progressive taxation program. I have a plan, and some of the others know this plan as well, where we could tax those who have it. There's 63,000 people making 500,000 and up and 250,000 and up, that you can tax them a little bit, and we can get $8 to $12 billion. And as Howie knows, the stock transfer tax is $8 to $10, $16 billion. We can finish this thing with a progressive taxation plan. You can have a surplus, and then dedicate money so we can get to free tuition for CUNY and SUNY and bring down the transportation fare. Let the rich pay. We've been paying enough. So yes, bring back Section 8 and put more money into that.
What is your position on gangs, guns, and street violence?
First, I want to address the importance of us coalescing and getting together. I'm going to be the first activist community organizing governor that this state has ever had. You can't continue the process of going behind doors with three people, the head of the Senate, the governor, and the head of the Assembly. They determine the budget, the legislation, and everything that goes down in the state. I want to experiment with a participatory government where the people will actually have power to deal with legislation and budget. You know, if we really organized it in a way where you had a governor that was going to go around the state and organize the masses of people. You know, there are millions of people in this state. In a powerful governor's position, you're able to organize much more. You know how well we do as organizers, broke, with no power. We're still able to do phenomenal things. Can you imagine if you had a governor that was an activist and an organizer committed to doing that work? I want to share with you one thing real quick. What I really want to do as governor is to provide leadership across the nation. I did some studying and I found out if you added up all of the deficits for every state in the union, California has the highest, 17.9 billion. If you added all of it, New York's is about 8 billion. It's $121 billion. The total deficits for all of the states in the union is $121 billion. Can you imagine if you had a leadership governor that's going to go around the country and encourage the masses in each state, along with the leadership, to say to the federal government, if you got $800 billion for Wall Street, all we need is 3 times 121, was that $346 billion. You can bail out the states for 3 years without raising taxes, without laying off people, without cutting vital services, and they can take those 3 years to become more fiscally prudent and responsible in their state as it relates to spending. That is a national movement we could start right here in New York State if we got a governor with vision and leadership capability. So, on those questions on violence, guns, remember, guns don't kill people, people do. You have to figure out, why would a person want to engage in crime? Nobody gets up in the morning and says, whoa, there's not enough police in the neighborhood, I think I'll be a criminal. Or they're not building enough jails, so I think I'll get into a life of crime. Or the sentences are too lenient, so I'll get into a life of crime. People get into a life of crime because they're hopeless. They get in a life of crime because they have little self-value. They'll take another brother out because they lost the sense of value of life. So if you couple an economic program that's going to address crime from an economic perspective, not more police, build more jails, the more you build, the more you're going to fill. And I think that's what you want, to keep the prison industrial complex going so you can make profit upstate and use the people downstate as your cannon fodder for profit. So I would have economic development address crime and violence. And then when you get into our African history and our culture and build more youth centers and take some cultural programs like Woody King and some of the arts groups, give them some money so that they can spread cultural arts across this state, then our young people will have other avenues than gangs. But when the gang is giving them more love than the state is, they're going to go with the gang. So I would do those kinds of things to make sure that we have more healthy young people in this state.
What is your suggestions for reform in the criminal justice system in New York State?
First, I free all the political prisoners. Those have been down for 30 and 40 years. If you give someone a sentence, 25 to life, the initial sentencing phase, and I do 25 good years in prison, if you can possibly call them good, but if I serve some good time, then probation, I should be released on parole based upon my time served in prison, not on my initial crime. But what they're doing with our political prisoners and our prisoners of war is that they're hitting them with 2 more years, because they want them to die in prison. So the first thing I would do is release the political prisoners in the state of New York. Secondly, prison has turned into punishment now instead of rehabilitation. They're cutting all of the education programs, cutting cultural programs, and you're doing hard time. So I would have a lot more money, funds put into rehabilitation and really building up counseling and education programs and all of those things that rehabilitate. Thirdly, I would make sure that the re-entry programs, so that we can cut back on the recidivism rate, we need to have re-entry programs that help our people when they come out. They can't get jobs, can't go to housing because they got a record, can't get a job because they got a record. They lie and say, I don't have a record. They get caught, they get fired. If they tell the truth, they don't get hired. So I would give a greater incentives to corporations and companies and businesses. I would have an incentive program that would hire those who pay their time, did their time and paid it. The other thing, we should have voting rights for prisoners. Voting rights. They should be able to vote. You know, when you do a crime, that doesn't mean you're no longer a citizen. You did a crime, you're doing a time. You should still be able to vote. And 2 states in this union, they're allowed to vote in prison. So I would do those kinds of things. And then preventive programs. The best solution to crime in prisons is to not have people in a predicament where they need to commit a crime, so they feel they need to commit a crime. And then we can do away with all of these harsh penalties. I'm glad they did something with the Rockefeller drug laws. It didn't go far as I wanted it to go, but it is something. It's a move in a direction. But we got to make sure that they don't turn social issues and health policies into a criminal justice question. Drug addiction is a social
This
health.
question is for Mr. Barron. What do you think college students should do during this election?
Vote for me. But I think this election provides college students with the opportunity. There are about 450,000 CUNY students and there are hundreds of thousands of SUNY students. They should really organize a solid voting bloc, because you can pick the next governor. You can pick the next mayor of cities across this state. There is a powerful organizing voting bloc for college students. Right now, they are trying to allow or put some legislation in place that will allow the Board of Trustees to have the power to determine tuition policies. Right now, it's on the state. But if you give it to the Board of Trustees, to these people that are appointed, and instead of people that are elected, tuition is going to go up extremely high, and the contribution or the commitment to higher education money from the government is going to go down. So I think college students have an opportunity now to show some political power by organizing a strong voting bloc and let people know what your numbers are, so that everybody will understand that they better get that CUNY, SUNY vote and private college vote if they want to get elected. And even more important, you can even start running for offices, like some of these city council offices. I'm in the city council where we are the new majority, yet we elected a minority, which is a white person, a minority. Y'all know who the new minority is? But they elected a minority to head up the city council when the new majority, people of color, are in power. So for us not to use it says that college students, you own the future and you can capture the present by being organized in a powerful voting bloc so that you can determine the next governor of the state of New York. This election for us, and I mean this literally, it's a life or death vote. The way you vote on November 2nd can determine whether we're going to continue to die at a high rate of HIV/AIDS, infant mortality, a low life expectancy. The way you vote is going to determine whether guns will still be on the street, whether we'll still be engaged in community crime, killing each other. The way you vote is going to determine whether police will still shoot at us 50 times, 41 times, 5 times, and get away with it. The way you vote will determine whether people will be in the street homeless, or foreclosures are going to continue to go down and people lose their minds and go to desperate stages. The way you vote is going to determine our life and death. This is no plaything. This is don't let nobody come and entertain you. Don't let nobody come and tell you that somebody already won. Don't let nobody come and tell you that someone has your vote in their pocket. And don't let nobody tell you that someone can't win. Anyone can win this race. Anyone can win this race. And so, I have been there for you. Others talk about urban agendas. I've lived it. I've been there on every issue you can think of for our community. I've been there. Others are talking about it. So if we get 50,000 votes on November 2nd, the Freedom Party will be a state-recognized party and will be able to do great things. If we get 200,000 votes, we'll have leverage. And if we can get 1.6 million out of the 3 million registered blacks and Latinos, I can be, should be, and will be the next governor of the state of New York. I thank you very much for your support.